I want us to redirect it differently today, because it's really very difficult to be teaching without us engaging. So anyone on the platform who wanna make some comments before we sort of get on with it? I'm sorry, I'm also trying not to overload the discussion, because I know it can be very technical. I see Kiamoretso is back. I see device is back. So we're probably going to have an engagement worth of our time, because they were here on Tuesday, I think it was, and we really had a very interesting discussion. Anything from your side, Kiamoretso, I can recall you, or debasing?
Thanks, Prof. All good.
I'm also testing if we are all audible at the moment.
We can hear you.
Yes. What is your interest today? What would you like us to talk about?
Nothing in particular. I'm just happy to absorb as much as I can. I'm busy with the proposal. So anything that will just add value and help me in prep for the proposal and for next year. So I'm just interested in every topic. Thank you, Prof.
Okay, how far are you with your proposal?
I don't know. I think I'm nearly at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm nearly at the end.
If you put together, what I meant was, have you put together the building blocks at least?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes, thank you.
So you
I've done, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I've done. Yeah, I chose. I didn't choose quantitative. I chose qualitative. I've done the theory part. I've presented the methodology to the best of my understanding, and yeah, just tying it up now and getting all the references together. I think that'll take a day or two more. But yeah, all good.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Thank
So
you,
have you already submitted it to your supervisor, or not yet?
No. So mine's only a proposal. I gotta just do the no. So there's no submission to anyone. It's just I don't think there is. It's just a case of putting it to turn it in and then submitting it. It's not the actual. It's not the research. So I'm just doing the first part.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So every bit of information will help me even for next year when I do the second part. So I'm not there yet.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
So you're still more at the conceptual.
Yes.
So the conceptual discussion is it helpful to you?
Very helpful.
Oh,
Very
okay.
helpful. Thank you so
much. Where in the process are you? I mean, the last time you spoke, I think you were still also at a proposal level. Can you hear us? Okay, we'll leave cameras for a moment. Let me hear Anele. Anele, where are you in the process?
Thank you, Mark. Hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I'm doing the doctoral. I presented on the 5th of August. I got my feedback from 3 professors.
Okay.
I'm about to I started with the corrections from the comments, and
okay,
then
from the comments by the promoters.
Not particular from the promoter, because the promoter and we are in the same understanding that we know what we want to do. But the comments were from the panel that was interviewing or was listening to the presentation that I did on the 5th of August. Okay. So 3 professors have reviewed the proposal and they gave the feedback on the proposal. Then I'm busy with that. Then from there, it's going to go to the conference and then the committee. Then I would be getting my ethical clearance thereof.
Wow. Wow, that's interesting. Do you want to share with us, I mean, today, with the corrections, being noted without you getting into those, do you want to share with us the data collection instruments then that you are meant to use in your study?
Yes, my
Take us
study
through.
my study is 2 phases. I'm going to use a mixed method. In phase 1, I'm going to use, it's going to be a qualitative phase. Then in qualitative phase, I will be using interview schedule. And then in quantitative phase, I will be using questionnaires and focus group discussions.
So repeat that. Maybe repeat that so I don't ask you the wrong question. Just repeat that.
Okay. My study is a mixed method study. First phase will be a qualitative phase of the study, and the second phase will be a quantitative phase of the study. So in qualitative phase of the study.
It's qualitative and quantitative, right?
Yes.
Basically, it's mixed method, you say, all right?
Yeah. So when I'm collecting the data in phase 1, which is qualitative, I'm going to use interview schedules.
Yes, that's a quality interview schedule. Interview guide is it's a qualitative tool for data collection. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And then
so you'll be using that as one instrument of collection of data for qualitative data.
For qualitative phase of the study.
Yes.
Exactly. Then I will move to the second phase, which is quantitative, where I will use questionnaires.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
But you also spoke about the.
Then I will conduct focus group discussions there.
But focus group discussion, we should agree, is a qualitative. It's another qualitative data collection instrument. Do you agree?
Yes, you're right. You're correct. You're correct. You're correct, Rob.
So in other words,
in the first phase, I will use 2 ways of data collection, and then on the second phase, I will use 1, which is questionnaires.
Okay. Which is a questionnaire. Okay. No, great. I want us to talk about your work, and I hope you don't mind. We are using it as a facilitation now, so other students can also pick up on their own work as well, because these concepts are important. Now, you are going to be using both quantitative and qualitative approaches, and both together is the mixed methods, right?
Yes, bro.
How big and how representative is your sample for the phase 2 that you talk about? In other words, I'm trying to ask the population and the size and the sample size. Do we perhaps know at the moment, or we don't?
I do, because I will be looking at 30 social workers.
Okay.
In the quantitative phase of the study.
Okay, so it's 30 in the sample. Quantitatively, 30. The size is 30 participants.
Yes.
Okay. But out of, it's 30 social workers. Are they particular social workers from a particular area, field, or where do they come from?
They are coming from the group of social workers.
I'm actually asking you a question on units of analysis.
Okay, they are social workers that are providing services on gender-based violence.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Then I will be selecting them from 2 areas, the Deep Sloot and Alexandra townships.
Okay. What? Okay. So these are social workers who provide gender-based violence in those 2 communities.
Yes.
So how big is the population? I'm talking about the social work population, because my understanding is you are studying social workers as a population, not necessarily Alexander and Deep Slot. Am I right?
Yes, we have a lot of social workers in the two areas.
As a,
Yes.
I want the population size. Lot is relative in research.
You want the number?
No, I want the population size. I want to know how big is the size of the. I mean, you are going to give. You said 30.
Yes.
30 is a sample of what size population?
Yes, Prof.
Do you understand? Am I making it? What I'm trying to ask is, you're going to interview or you're going to give questionnaires to 30 social workers in both two communities, right? Both Alex and Slot. But yes. I'm saying, out of what size of the population? What is the size of the population? Approximately. Do we know or we don't?
Are you talking about even if I don't stick to 30 generally?
No.
Of this?
No, I'm asking you, if you are going to be interviewing 30, you are selecting 30 from a population. Am I right?
Yes.
So I wanted to know if you do know the population size. Do we know what is the population size
of social workers?
Yes, in the community that you are going to select 30. Remember, 30 that you are selecting is not everybody. That's my understanding.
Yes, I'm not quite sure about the numbers, but I know about the number of organizations and the departments that are providing services in those communities. So when I was counting, there are more than 30, around 50 something.
Are you now that changes a bit for me. Are we now talking organizations that provide gender-based services in the two communities, or are we talking social workers who are providing gender-based service, or is both?
No. What happens is that not every social workers from those communities are providing gender-based violence services.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
So now when I was checking the sample, I went with the discretion to say, what are the organizations that are there already providing the kind of services that I'm looking for? And do those organizations have all the social workers? Or because I found that not all the organizations or departments are having social workers. So I was counting on that basis.
I agree with you there. I completely agree with you. So what then is your population size when you started counting? I mean, you are now working with an information that says not all social workers provide gender-based violence, which is very important to note. And then also not all organizations that we are talking about provide the services of gender-based violence. So that's important. Now, the question I'm asking then is, if that was to be the case, which it is the case now, how many are we talking organizations that are providing the service, or are we talking social workers that are providing? And I know you have already defended your study, so you're not defending right now. It's just for me to understand the size of the population, because it is important for me to know how big is the size of the population where you are selecting 30 out of
54 social workers.
So in total, you've got 54 social workers for both Alexander and
Deep Slot.
Yes.
Why
wouldn't you quantitatively then take all of them?
When I was discussing the sample with my supervisor, she said I should note that my study is going to use both methods. So I should not take a big number of social workers in the in the study because I still have to do the groups and also the interviews.
I agree with that, but I mean, quantitatively, my understanding is, and again, feel free to differ with us here, because this is not your session. My understanding then is you're going to do quantitative by way of what? A questionnaire, right?
Yes.
So when you give a questionnaire, you can actually give it to all the 30 or no, all the 50. You don't have to sample, because the sample to me this sample size sound very small to me.
Okay.
In other words, what I'm trying to go to is that why wouldn't you give the questionnaires to all the 50, that you've got? Although you may have maybe one or two who may not return the questionnaire.
Okay.
What was your and let's not discuss your supervisor, but what will be your appetite for that? I'm thinking we've got a small size population here. If we've got, for me 50 is very small as a population, especially if you're looking at, remember, quantitative is numerical. The strength of quantitative is numbers.
Okay. Yes, yeah, true.
So the numbers, the numbers that you are working on for me are too small. And my question is, why wouldn't you use these numbers, all of them?
I think I can go back to the drawing board with my supervisor.
You can actually give the questionnaires to all of them, because let's just look at this. I'm not sure whether you are able to see on the screen. Is it showing? Is something showing on the screen?
Yes, it does.
Okay, let's just talk about this, and this is also for the benefit of those who joined the session maybe lately, so that we go back a little bit, so that they don't get lost on why are we talking population and are we talking size and all this. So on the platform, please take note. Let's talk about this, and we'll come back to you to interrogate you again, Anele. But let's use this as an example for now, just so that you don't go back for the sake of going back. You are allowed to go back anytime you want to go back and improve on the proposal, because there's no harm until such time that you have done everything and submitted everything marked and sealed. So what is the population? When we look at the population, we look at the group usually of people, like in this case, we're talking social workers, about whom we want to draw conclusions. So there is a group that you have identified in the organizations, and if you don't mind, we can use your example of those that are doing GBV. So when you look at the total collection of units of analysis, that means all those who are doing some social work relating to GBV. So it can be the universe of units, like people, it can be nations, it can be cities. And at some point I was thinking you are talking about organizations like GBV, because those can also be a population from which the sample is to be selected. So you first say, this is my population. You need to know the whole population, and we'll talk about sampling frame now. The whole population is what you are looking at, because you are going to draw a sample from there. So population is a term that says boundaries on the study unit. So you actually say, I'm not interested in the teachers that are within the GBV space. I'm not interested in the helpers and the auxiliary workers and the domestic workers and so forth. So you are only interested in those that are rendering services to GBV, but not all of them, particularly social workers, because there are other, you can agree with us that there can also be other people who render services to the GBV. Anel, is that not correct?
Yes, we do have.
Yeah, but in this case, you are only interested in the views and the opinions of social workers. So let's just get that clear. So a population then means the group or collection that you're interested in generalizing about. So you then take the group that you'd like to sort of generate conclusions on. And now let's look at the sampling frame, because I want you to just look at that in your proposal. Again, I'm mindful of the fact that you have reached the point where you can really strengthen this work that you are doing, because there's no harm in making it more stronger, given that the topic that you have chosen is the most important topic for not only the for the study, but I think also for the country to learn from. So it's important that you contextualize it for us as well, because it's not just for yours. I know it's for you. It's important for you for your study, but it's also important that it can be cited for solutions, because the issue of gender-based violence is very serious in the country. So let's then look at the sampling frame.
All right. My understanding of a sampling frame, you said. I think it's out of the population, the whole population, the subjects that you work on, that you maybe, for example, interview for your research. So those people are the sample, which is representative of the whole community or population that you are researching. That's my understanding of it.
Okay, so you're saying is the people? Is it? Sorry, I didn't hear that first part of the answer. Please repeat that.
Yes, my my understanding of it.
Yeah. You know what is important? You know what I'm trying to test, Makosa-san, and please just accept that. When you give an answer and somebody says, "Can you repeat it?" Quite often than not, it's not repeated in the same way. I'm not saying the answer is correct, but I just want to see if you can repeat your answer. I'm trying to test reliability here.
Okay, Doc. Okay, so my answer was the sampling frame is the sort of like a sample of the whole population, but not like that small number that you are maybe asking interview questions or whatever to get answers for your research. So
okay.
My understanding of it is the information you get out of those individuals will be used as sampling for the research.
Okay. Let me hear if there's anybody who's going to corroborate your answer. Livasha, sorry if I butchered your name, my apologies. Naidu, you've heard what Makosa-san had to say on what she thinks it's a sampling frame. What do you say? And this is still in the context of a population and an ability to draw a sample from the population that we've just discussed with Anele. So we are moving the discussion forward by asking, what is a sampling frame? Because we do have now an idea of what Anele is going to do. And Makosa-san said, this is what her understanding of a sampling frame is.
I think it's the people who are going to give you information, people who are going to interview them or give you answers, and you get information from the group of people for your research, to help you with the information for your research. I think that is the sampling frame.
Okay, so are you
agreeing with?
Are you agreeing with Anele?
Yes, with Anele.
Sorry, Makosa-san.
The last one to speak. Yes.
Yeah, it was Makosa-san. But then I also asked
meaning that okay, sorry, Professor.
No, please proceed.
Yes, I was saying in my research, I interviewed the people that I interviewed to get the investigating officers that I interviewed. I think they are my sampling frame. to get information, to assist me with to get information with the cases.
Okay, not quite, but yeah, I hear you. What maybe answer me then on the other question. Thank you for bringing that. We'll clarify it just now, maybe much more in a simpler way for your own updates. But I want to know, I was asking the question that those that are unable to talk on this platform, is it because one, they can't hear us, or I also asked that question, or is because they've got technical glitches, or now you've just answered to say now you can hear us, which means you are now able to hear. But I want you to answer my hypothesis on those that are unable to respond. What do you think are the what do you think are behind?
With myself, Professor, I can hear you. I'm actually using the hearing aids, but I'm okay now. I've recharged them. I'm okay. I'm okay now. I can hear you now.
No, it's not for you. It's for the other. It's for our other sample. I'm asking about the sample in the platform. What is your? I want you to give me an assumption so we can test it. I want you to give me an hypothesis as to the reasons. I mean, with you is the hearing aids, and then what about Baba? What about Michael? What about Livasha? Because I did ask for Livasha's input. Well, what do you think what is your assumption there?
Maybe they're struggling with the network or something.
Oh, yeah, that's a possibility. Okay, let's allow them to confirm the hypothesis or to disprove it. Let's check. Prudence, are you able to hear us? Okay. Or is it Nomtandazo? Maybe the name probably will be Nomtandazo.
Hello?
Yes. Oh, you can hear us. Yes, we've put a hypothesis about you that you've got a network challenges. What is your correct answer to this assumption? Do you have challenges with the network or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. I don't have any challenges with the network. So it's been, I've missed so many sections. So yeah, I'm just listening.
Kiamorezo must then say, I think we must do away with the assumption that is a network challenge. Your hypothesis has not been proven. Kiamorezo, you can go ahead. I'm saying now your assumption has not been proven. So when we, so in other words, your hypothesis is not, unless somebody on the platform can tell you, yeah, well, I do have a network challenge, but Prudence says no. Her reasons have got nothing to do with the network challenge.
Okay. I agree with you, Professor.
So meaning we have reached the point where our hypothesis has not been proven. It's a different reason. But I will still want to hear what Livasha has to say. But is exactly what we do in research. We put an assumption, we go out, we test it, we test the theory, and we come back and say, well, it's not been proven. It's not, you are not lying. It's just that the hypothesis has not been confirmed. That's the research conclusion that we can arrive at. I hope in the bigger scheme of things, as we're playing around with this, I hope everybody is able to pick up that in research you put a hypothesis, which is your own hypothesis. You go out, you collect data, and that data, when you analyze it, will tell you exactly the reasons. Sometimes it's reasons other than your own assumptions because it's not been confirmed. So that's very, very important. But let's just look at the sampling frame before we lose track of our thought. Again, Anel, it's still you who brought us here, and I hope you can still hear us, if you can give us a signal that you can hear us.
Yes, Prof, I can hear.
Okay, a sampling frame, as you've been listening to us for the last few minutes, is that, and we're going to go back to the GBV story, because at least I want everybody to use your example to fix their proposals and maybe to improve on their own proposals as well. So I hope you don't mind.
No
now,
problem.
and we don't have full context of your research, so we will be making just principle discussion without necessarily going deeper into your own work. A sampling frame, when you look at the situation that you have just sketched for us, is that you do the listing of all units in the population from which the sample will be selected. So in other words, you go to so we need to service providers are there. Of course, you defined what GBV is, so that we don't look at anything and everything. Yes. Is there a question?
I'm not sure if it's on my end, but the line is suddenly not clear, like you breaking up. I'm not sure if it's just me who's experiencing that.
Okay. Let's check. I can't assume that other people don't have a problem.
Yeah, yeah, there was a breakup.
Was there a breakup?
Yes.
Michael, are you able to hear us?
Yes, sir. I'm able to hear you. It was cracking initially, but I can hear you.
So, okay, Makozana, it looks like you solved Michael's problem as well, because he was quiet for a while. Now that we know he can hear us, the next question will be directed at you, Michael. Now let's go back and clarify that point before we got maybe you lost us. I was saying the sampling frame is the listing of all units in the population from which the sample will be selected. So in other words, you first take everything in within the population. You list everybody, everything. And if it's an organization, and we're trying now to work on the organizations that Anel has been generous to share with us. So you go in and you look at how many organizations are rendering safe. You also have to do what you mean by, so that don't go there and you think other than GBV. So there must be an operational definition of what GBV is, so that when you look at the people that, or the participants that are rendering the service, that by your research, that list of units composed of, composing a population from which a sample is selected is called a sampling frame. So when we talk about the sampling frame, we're not talking a sample, we're talking the list, or that, quasi list, some kind of a list of units which compose the population. So if the sample is to be representative of the population, it is essential that the sampling frame include all or nearly all members of the population. So I want to come back to Anele now and say, if you were to understand what a sampling frame is, it means you've got everything that represents the entire population. So if you want to have a representative sample, we look at the whole population and say, is everybody covered in the population or not? So that's the first thing. Now when we look at the units of analysis, because I'm taking it that here is individuals, in other words, the social workers who are rendering, in my understanding, and again I'm saying I'm very cautious not to interrupt your own work, but I'm looking at the units of analysis as social workers who render GBV services in both Alexander and Deep Slot, you said. Yes. Now, initially, when you were saying you're looking at social workers, I was going to ask you, are you going to interview social workers in Colombia? And the answer would have been an emphatic no. And then I was going to ask you, well, do you consider going to Mozambique? So as you narrow down your units of analysis and your research, then it makes more sense, because then I know where to look, when I go through your study. So units of analysis, and I think this must be something important for you, Kiamukhetso and Uvasi, because you're still working on your proposal. Units of analysis are those things we examine in order to create summary description of all such units and explain the differences among them. So when you study anything, or when you use your units of analysis, in other words, your target, what are we looking at here? Are we looking at cars? Are we looking at individuals, groups, organizations, events, or what are we looking at? And you need to narrow it in such a way that we've got an understanding. Now, I wanted us to come to this point with you, Anele, because there was an issue around the sample and the size and so on, so that we don't confuse you in our discussion. Now, this is just a sample guide. So this is a pure guide. You can do what you will with it, but otherwise it's just a guide, and I want you to note it is very important. For smaller populations, you know, like a population which is equals to 100 or fewer, and this is where I thought you said you are looking at less than 100 or 100, you know, at the most. There's little point in some, you can survey the entire population. Does it make sense, Anele?
Yes, Prof.
So in other words, you can then go and say, when you do your literature review, and say, by the way, if the sample size is 100 or fewer, you know, is there any point in sampling? Or I can survey the entire population. It's important, that principle will be very important for your study, because then you say, you know, my sample was, my population was small, relatively small, in other words, 100 or fewer, and therefore there was no point in sampling 30 out of it. I could simply survey the entire population. So if you say that, that is a very strong statement that you shall have made in your research. It's an empirical statement that you are making. If the population size around 500, for example, give or take, I mean, it can be 500 or, you know, thereabout, you can do 50% if you want. 50% of 500 thereabout will be 250. So again, it's the principle that you can follow, where you then say, look, according to literature, and you can go and cite different literature that you want to cite. You know, any size around 500 or less, you know, I can do 50%. If the population size around 1,500, that is quite a large population, you can then do 20%. I hope this is flagged on the screen. I hope it is.
Yes, we can see, Prof.
Oh, you can see it. Okay. Now, there is also a point where we say beyond a certain point, about 5,000 or more. Now, this is where you're dealing with a huge quantitative studies, you know, where the population size almost, now there, when it's 5,000 or more, the size of the population becomes irrelevant. Therefore, you can simply go with a sample size of 400, because that will be adequate. So in other words, now that there's millions South Africans, and nobody is going to work on a sampling frames of millions South Africans. You can simply do a sample size where you're looking at how big the size is that you want to sample. And remember, this is more relevant when we are talking quantitative study. And I think that's where you were taking us earlier, Anela, that there will be a part where you deal with qualitative and you know, interview few people and focus group few people, and then doing a survey where you're going to do quantitative. So I hope this not only help you, but it also assist those that were just to finish their sampling. Now, what is important with that explanation again is for you to understand the representative sample, because if you are going to have a sample that reflects the population accurately, so in other words, if you have taken the 50, I mean, we're talking 100, and you have taken all 100 or 50, you have actually selected the sample, representative sample accurately. So therefore, if you want to generalize the findings afterwards of the whole population, in other words, the population being those that, you know, render GBV services in the population, you can generalize because you have had an opportunity to do the representative sample. This is also a very important principle in research, because if you've got the representative sample, then you are at liberty to generalize your findings to their entire population, because you have spoken to everybody. You have actually surveyed everyone. So sample is representative of the population from which it is selected. If all the characteristics of the sample closely approximate those same aggregate characteristics. And when I use a sample, I always say, well, I try to make it more visual, and I hope we can try that again. I say I always see those people who do vendors in the street. You know, you see them when you go around, they cut, for example, an orange into a number of pieces. So you can one, or if you are in a coffee shop and they give you a sample, what are they giving you? They are actually saying to you, if you take this coffee as a sample, it represents the bigger container. So what is that? That is a representative sample. So if you take the sample as in, if you eat this orange and you like what the taste of this orange, you might as well like the entire bag. Because what you are eating on the one side is a sample of what it is in the bigger side. So I just want to understand why it's important in research to have a representative sample discussed in the way that we are spending time on. Because then when I give you a sample that is representative of a bag, that then means the whole population, which is the oranges in the bag, will taste the same way as the one that you have sampled earlier on. So same with coffee, same with everything. So in a research situation, if your sample is accurately done, and you don't have to do it like that, this is just a principle to guide you that in an event that you want a representative sample, then you need to make sure that you select your sample accurately so you can generalize. Now, what then it means is, if I put an orange that tastes so yet it does not reflect the bag, it could simply mean, well, it's not a representative sample. It was just a sample, but not necessarily representative. So that is still fine. But at least I hope I was able to visually demonstrate a sample to all of you. Is there any question thus far, or are we still good to go? So for those of you who have not had an opportunity to discuss sampling and the population, I hope this helps a bit. Anna, let's come back to you before they, or let's see if there's any comment, question, complaint. Michael, you are next. What is your opinion so far? Where are you in terms of your own understanding of the work that we are doing? Michael, I give you the platform. You can unmute yourself and talk.
Well, I understand fully what's going on. Like I said, I'm just absorbing all the information, and yeah.
Yes, please do. Where are you in terms of your own work?
My work is more like a portfolio, not necessarily a research. I had already finished my research.
Oh, you've done your research already?
Yeah, so I was, the reason why I joined this was just to, catch up on, how would I put it, like review the work I have done, and maybe get some information about how to write a portfolio.
Wow, that's great. Have you, and I'm making note of what you are saying, that you've completed your research. This is not for you to incomplete the work, but can you share with me, how did you collect data? What instruments, and how was the experience? If you don't mind, we'll come back to Anela just now. Let's give Anela a little bit of a breather. Michael has completed the research. is now, just doing a refresher in order to complete his portfolio. So he's a classic case of how or what is it that it entails when you collect data, small challenges, joys, and so on. Michael, you want to share with us in this platform? There's a lot that can be learned from the work you've done, and this is the platform.
Okay, so my research was basically on infidelity on, if I can remember, infidelity on Twitter or on social media. How social media influences infidelity. And how I collected my data, I did interviews. So I interviewed 5 participants.
You did not interview people who are infidel, right?
No, what I did was I interviewed people who are on social media and who have partners. How do I put it? Partners, are in a relationship. Sorry, yeah.
I hear you. How did you survey them? I'm interested in how did you select? We all, not all, sorry, but quite a considerable number of people at a certain level of their life are on some social media. So how did you select them? It's done, so you can share with us.
Well, I just so my participants were psychology students in varsity, so that was how I just chose them basically.
So you chose them what, randomly, or did you say
Yeah,
what?
it was I chose them randomly. I sent quite a link on Google what's it called?
Yes, on Google,
on
yeah.
Google Doc or the Google Slides, and they volunteered to participate in my research.
So there were some who participated voluntarily, and you didn't have to know them.
Yes, I didn't have to know them. They were first-year psychology students.
Psychology students, you say?
Yes.
Oh.
So my workout again. My sample size was based on 2 males and 3 females, who were in a relationship and used.
How many people you said? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
So I chose five participants, 2 males.
5,
3
okay.
females, yes.
Yes, and then but you didn't choose 5. I thought you said you sent out the link to 5. Is that what you're saying?
No, I sent out the link to workout again to a list of people who were first-year students. So it was a broadcast, and then 5 people had volunteered. So the 5 people that volunteered were the people I interviewed.
Okay. So in total, then we're talking how many people?
So in total, it was 5 participants.
Okay, so it was 5 participants, but you send it to those 5 participants have volunteered to participate out of how many students?
It was about 60 people got the emails, and then only 5 people chose to participate.
Oh, I see. How did you deal with issues of confidentiality and so on?
I did inform them. So I did inform them again about the confidentiality. I took ethical clearance, and then
Okay, that's interesting. And they participated voluntarily, knowing that they would not be identified, right?
Yes. So what we did was in the questionnaire they didn't in the interview they didn't mention their names. Basically, they were classified in numbers and age. So age group and their genders.
Okay, so how long were the questions on the questionnaire, and how did you test the questionnaire before you distributed it, if you have?
Okay, so the questionnaire was 12. There were 12 questions. And then the questionnaire was gotten from I'm trying to remember the scale. Okay, I have to go back and go to my research and just check it out.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We're not necessarily. It's not so much an issue. But are you confirming that? Okay, you had the question. Did you have the questionnaire tested? I mean, sorry, pre-tested before it was administered. In other words, you developed the questions and then you shared them with one or two just to see if there's ambiguity. They are clear. They are easy to answer.
So the questions were actually gotten from the questionnaire. Sorry, was gotten from a previous what's it called? A previous report. It's questions about their Twitter use and how they think it influences their thinking about infidelity.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so now they use the Google, and they've now answered the questions. Then they come back to you, right? Come back directly to you. How do you assess the answers?
So it was a Zoom. We did a Zoom interview after the questions where they were asked to further explain their answers. So I read out the questions to them, and then they further explained what do you call it?
So now you are following up on the question by getting them to clarify their own answers.
Yeah. So yeah. I on the Zoom meeting, we basically spoke about their answers and how they felt about the question. Then I transcribed the data, and I found themes that related to their answers.
Oh, okay. So the participants that were participating on the, if I'm correct, you need to correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. So these are the same participants who were interviewed after they dealt with the questionnaire, or these are now different people that you are interviewing?
No, I don't understand. You said?
Remember, these are the same people that you have interviewed. You have sent questionnaires to, they've completed. Now you are following up with an interview with the same people, or is these are different people?
No. Okay. So no, the questionnaires were done on Zoom. So what I did was I spoke. So I asked them a couple of questions on Zoom. They answered the questions, and then we spoke about the questions. So how did they feel about the question? What their thoughts were about infidelity, and
I'm saying this is the same participants, right?
Yes, it's the same people.
So you do first quantitative, you collect, then you go back to interview them using Zoom. This is a design. I'm talking research. This is now. You are helping me to understand your research design now.
Okay, so it was a qualitative research in the sense that there wasn't any. It was more of a. Work it again. It was more of a discussion.
So you're transcribing. So it's more like it's qualitative data that you are collecting, and because you are basing it also on the quantitative data that you have collected.
Okay.
So basically, no, I don't want to confuse you. I want you to follow. You collected the data quantitatively using the questionnaire, and then you are following it up qualitatively. Am I right?
Oh no. So I collect the questionnaire was what helps me to, should I say, to gather the data and transcribe. So it wasn't.
Yes.
It wasn't in numerical form, or it wasn't in quantities. Rather, it was qualitative in the sense that I literally just wrote down what the what my participants had explained.
Okay. Let's give you a break for now. But before we do, I want to see how then did you analyze that data?
Okay, so I analyzed it by breaking it down into themes, and then we basically spoke about the themes. So we spoke about the themes in terms of theories that talk about infidelity. Spoke about the seven loves, or something about love. Though
Yeah.
I can't remember, but
No, no, it's fine.
So I broke down my themes into theories. So I compared my themes with theories that were already out there.
Oh, I see. I see. So what was your, did you, or maybe let me not ask you a closed question. Did you have a hypothesis at the beginning, or it was just an open discussion that you were going to have? In other words, what was your hypothesis that you were testing? You must have had a view.
Yes, I did have a hypothesis.
What was the hypothesis?
Okay, so I did say that yes, Twitter influences infidelity.
So your hypothesis that the usage of social media
influences
or increases infidelity amongst partners, I would imagine.
Yes, among Twitter users within.
You are looking at also an opportunity where there's a correlation. Somebody can do a correlational study where they said, does the use of social media increases infidelity among partners, for example?
Yes, exactly.
So you're looking at that. And then what I mean, you said there were themes that were coming out, that you were also balancing them with theory. And what are the patterns that you are seeing, or that are emerging, if you have come to that stage? Are you seeing some patterns emerging, trying to confirm or to disconfirm your assumption, or what is your overall view?
Oh, okay. So yeah, so the themes I got was, okay, so actually the pattern I realized was more about the content. So the content that people see actually the contents that people see on Twitter, because my research was actually based on Twitter, not social media entirely. So so the contents that people see on Twitter influences how they perceive infidelity.
Oh, okay. So you are not looking at the social media in entirety. You've narrowed it down to just
Twitter. I had to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had to narrow it down to Twitter in order to it kind of helped me make the research easier.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
so
I do follow.
Yeah.
I do follow that. I think that's very good. I hope people on the platform are still awake, because what we are doing, just in another roundabout way, is to engage researchers that have done this work, and we can learn from that. I think there's one or two things that I'm picking up also from this conversation. Anela, you are not off the hook yet, but there's issue around computer-assisted telephone interviewing. That this is another way where I think we are learning new tools of collecting data, that you can do, questionnaires using a phone, or you can do using a computer, or different ways of doing it. So this method is used by government, academic, And you can use telephone interviews because they are less consuming, often less expensive. I'm listening to what you are saying, Michael, that you have been using Zoom, for example. And I'm thinking, wow, this is very interesting because it is a new way of using the electronic system of collecting data. So it just increases opportunities and benefits that researchers can make use of. So we have looked at that previously, that you can use this, and I'm glad that somebody is saying I've been able to walk that journey. I mean, we can discuss this until the end of the day, but I think what it just demonstrates is that there's different ways that you can participate in research. Anele, are you able to pick up one or two issues that you would like to share with us, linked to where you have taken us to? We will move. We are discussing data collection, data analysis, but it's important to collect data from the right sample, but it's also important to collect data from the right sample from the right population. So there's a population, there's a sample, then there's a data, and then collection, and then there's data analysis. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I just want to see where you are, Anele, in terms of this conversation now. I know we have gone all the way to the north, but we are actually going to the south. It's because we are also trying to accommodate as many people as possible, because we are not at the same stages of the proposal and the research, and the expectations are also not necessarily the same in terms of what the level of participation should be. Anela, can you still hear us?
Yes, Doc, I can hear you. Okay,
how do you wrap up the discussion relating to the population sample, and so that we can at least move to data collection?
I think what I can touch on is that I will be looking at what the reviewer, number one, have said about the conclusion that I've made. The question was, which formula did you use to come up with the suggested sample size?
Yes.
So I believe that maybe Prof. Matlakala is need that. And then the second reviewer asked how many social workers are covered from the 2 townships that you selected for the purpose of the study.
That's the population size. Can you see that?
So I think I need to fix that. I see what you were telling regarding the frame, and also from the frame I need to select the units in the population from the sample size.
Yeah. Then I think what you could also add, and this again is not to, please don't move away from your goalpost, is first to say how many social workers are in both Diepsloot and Alexander, just as a point of departure. Because your point earlier on was not all social workers in there also render GBV. So you don't start with the GBV number, if you get where we are going with it.
Yes, Prof.
So you first say, do we know the number of social workers in the 2 communities that you want to focus on? Because it is from there where you then say, from these numbers, how many social workers then are simply and purely rendering services that are classified as GBV. In that case, what have you done? You have staggered the presentation in a manner that is more reasonable and easy to follow. Because if you start by giving the number 30 and, for example, or 50, it is going to be that, let's look at what is the total. So you may find that in actual fact, you are correct in what you are saying, but maybe the 30 is everybody who renders only GBV. So if you could get data on the population size for those that render, social workers that are rendering GBV in the 2, then the formula makes sense. Because remember, the secret is, if you can justify every move that you are making, and you're justifying it either through literature or properly explaining it, That is what research does. So that if I want to do the same study that you're doing, remember there is a principle in research. We call it replicability. What you are doing, if I want to do it myself, I need to reach the same conclusion. In other words, if I walk your path, if I do what you have done, I should be able to get to a point where I get to the same conclusion. So it's important, therefore, that we look at that from a point of reliability point of view, because that's a measure, that's a measurement criteria for measurement in research. So if you then say, according to my sources, and this is my source, there is this number of social, so you need to get a credible, I don't want to sound disrespectful, but you need to get the credible source that is going to say to you, these are the number of social workers that you get in the two communities. And based on that, then you sample. I hope it makes sense.
It does.
Okay. So let's come back to Mogetsu and see if she's still with us. I was saying and this is a principle that I want to repeat with the students, especially as I was discussing this with Annele, the reliability. Reliability in research is very important because it refers to the consistency and the stability of the result of an experiment. So in other words, what it means is the consistency of a measurement, whether repeated measurements of the same object provide consistent and stable result. So if I take what you are doing now, Annele, and maybe Michael as well, and I apply it myself, I need to get to the same results, and that should be stable. So consistency is a necessary condition for internal validity, but it's not necessarily a sufficient condition. So in other words, if you say to me, it takes you 40 minutes from point A to point B, and we have eliminated all the risks, it must take everybody 40 minutes to do so. So that's reliability. So reliability of an experiment is set to increase if the experiment is repeated and consistent results are obtained. So it is important in your research to check if that which you are doing, if it's done by somebody else, they will reach the same kind of conclusion, and not only reach it once, but repeatedly and consistently. So the consistency of repeatability of an instrument matters. So in other words, what you are going to use as an instrument, even if it's me using it or it's Godfrey using it, the result that it must produce must be, consistent and stable. If it's not, then there is an issue around internal validity. So the extent to which you can make certain conclusions beyond doubt is at risk, if I can just simplify it that way. Internal validity, remember, it's about saying, I have got no doubt that these social workers that are working at the, rendering GBV services have made the following conclusions. When I go to them using the same instrument and they're in the same place, using the same, research design that you have used, I should be able to come to the same conclusion as you shall have arrived at, Annele. So that's what internal validity is about. So it is important, therefore, that for those of you who are still going to design instruments, you make sure that your instruments are internally consistent. That is, are the item responses consistent across constructs? In other words, am I asking the right question and using the right instrument? And this is stable over time. When I do test and I retest correlations, will it work the same way? Because you don't want an instrument that only works when it's used by Godfrey, and when I use it or the retest, then it's something else. Whether there was consistent in test administration and scoring. So in other words, we need to check, was there consistency in the test as we administered it? Did we administer it in the morning, but then some are administered at night? It might be that is important to know, because perhaps the instrument is only meant to be administered at a certain time. So it is important to test it, the instrument administration as well. Otherwise, what you can do is that you may reach wrong conclusions because then the instrument is tested at the wrong time. Reliability is a matter of whether a particular technique, when we apply it repeatedly to the same object, yield the same results. I hope that makes sense. On the other hand, reproducibility or replicability is a replication. It refers to the ability of others to replicate one's findings. If I take your findings, I go to Deep Sleuth or other places, if I get to the same results, that is what you call replicability. It means repeating a study and checking to see whether the same results are produced each time. So you can take somebody else, do the work that you need to do, run with it and see if you will get the same results. It's extremely important criteria in empirical science. Unless other scientists are able to repeat one's measurements and obtain similar results, the result will not be accepted by the scientific community. So, in other words, if I take your study now, the Alexander situation and the Deep Sleuth situation, or the Twitter situation by Michael, and I go to not psychology students, I go and look for law students, and I apply the same design, select using Google and so on, I must be able to get the same result so that then we can look at the credibility and the reproducibility of your findings, because it's Twitter and it's about asking the same questions, applying the same instruments. So for replication to take place, a study must be capable of replication. It must be replicable. So in other words, we must be able to reproduce your results. I wanted to check with the students. When you look at the questionnaire, there are those questionnaires that will ask, we call them the Likert scale, where you've got 5 questions: strongly agree, strongly disagree, agree, strongly, what is it? No, I think I'm getting it wrong now. It's agree, strongly agree, or unknown somewhere in the middle, strongly disagree, disagree and strongly disagree, something like that. I think I'm getting tongue twisted now. How many of you have used a questionnaire which is a 5 Likert scale? In other words, agree, strongly disagree. Sorry, strongly agree. Disagree, strongly disagree, but somewhere in the middle, unknown, where you sit somewhere in the middle. Anybody who has used that as a questionnaire? A lot of you are saying you are using mixed methods. So I'm sure, as you use mixed method, you'll know that the collection of data quantitatively is through questionnaires, and the other method will be through either interviews, as you spoke about them, or focus group. Prudence, your hand is up. Please rescue us.
Yes, Prof. I have used Likert scale on one of my assignments. It's strongly agree, and then neutral, and then disagree and strongly disagree.
Okay. So how do you use it?
You formulate a statement where your respondents have to rate the statement whether they agree or disagree, and then after that there is an open question that you ask the respondent why they rated the statement in that way. If they rated it 5, they must say the reasons why, and then you use those open questions for qualitative analysis.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree with you, but I agree with you on one principle first, Prudence, if you can allow us. I agree with you that you put a statement. Yes. So that statement, then you code the answers according to the Likert scale, because there's 5. The Likert scale uses 5 rating answers. So yes. You want to know here, and then you're asking them they must rate. I'm not sure why you want them to motivate their answers. Are you then say they must motivate because you are doing both quantitative collection and qualitative collection of data?
Yes.
Okay, now I hear you. So you give it, because they don't have to give you reasons if you are doing just quantitative collection of the data. You agree?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so when you're using it, how do you formulate your statement? Do you formulate it more as a question or just as a statement, or how do you do it?
Some questions and some statements. For example, the one that I did, it was for evaluating a brochure.
Yeah.
HIV and AIDS brochure. So the first question was of it's called selection. Yeah. And then you ask them how, if they find the brochure attractive. So it's either you ask as a question or you do as a statement and say, I find this brochure attractive, or do you find the brochure attractive? Like that. Okay.
Yeah. Those kind of questions.
Yes.
What you're trying to demonstrate here, and I'm just using prudence to discuss this, but I'm sure you also have your view, is that there may be questions that are just one or two where you need a yes and a no. You agree, Prudence, right?
Yes.
That, because a quantitative question, you can ask a yes and a no. And you can also have a questions which are now statement, which are now requires you to tick the appropriate answer. And whether you strongly agree or strong, these are the degrees that you will do when you do the analysis. So I'm very happy that here somebody says I've used it. How did you get those questions tested or pre-tested, Prudence, if they were?
Well, that was the exercise. So I don't know yet how I did, if I did well or not, because that was the exercise of us. That was the experiment.
Oh, is it? Oh, you have not received feedback on that, have you?
Yes, I haven't. Yes.
Oh, but you have drafted the questions.
Yes.
And you have now given the questions to somebody to evaluate and give feedback.
Unfortunately, you don't have someone to actually evaluate your questions. We're required to formulate the questions ourselves, and then after that, you have a full questionnaire of maybe like 8 questions, and then you give the questionnaire to the respondents. So in that process, there was no evaluation of the questionnaire.
Oh, I see. But when you give them to the respondents or participants, right? Before you do that, do you get somebody, one or two people that check them and sort of check whether they're ambiguous, unambiguous, clear, whether there's no confusion or something like that, or that doesn't happen? That didn't happen.
No, that didn't happen. But then I checked with my other friends, with the classmates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But is it because the reason why it didn't happen was it because what was the reason why it didn't happen? And I'm trying to say, because when you do the write up and something like that did not happen, you do have to report about it. So I want to know what is the reason why it didn't happen, so that you then say, because you see with the research, when you document the process that you've gone through, you do raise the fact that the questionnaire was developed, the design, but it was not piloted. And the reason why it was not piloted is this, so that we can know, as readers of your report, what is your understanding of the reasons?
At this point, I think, well, the lecturer thought we must be on the level to actually assess and see that our questionnaires are right or wrong. I don't know. Because we're not required or told to submit the questionnaires for evaluation first before moving to the next stage, which was giving out the questionnaires to the respondents.
Okay, no, I hear you. But you need to, you know, I don't know what is the level at which you will be participating. Will you be expected to be marked on this or not necessarily? It was just an experiment.
We expected to be marked on it.
Oh, okay. Now
Yeah.
you prepared. You see the difficulty of putting a questionnaire together is that you need to identify the different areas that you want to investigate. Remember those multiple variables.
Yes.
So you've got, for example, you'll ask one question several times because you're getting somewhere. So how did you, how were you guided on that? You can ask one question and you're asking it at different times.
I understand what you're saying, Prof. So there's a guideline. There are 8 problem types that you can find in a brochure or when you are evaluating something. So along those eight problem types that you are given, and then you have to go through the brochure and see if each of the problem is there, each of the problem type is there in the brochure, then you formulate a question from there.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
I see. That is one way of looking at it. And how do you then prepare the answers from the analysis point of view? In other words, you've asked the questions. Yeah, okay.
The quantitative, to analyze the answers for the quantitative way to calculate the mean score.
Yeah.
The mean score from the Likert scale, and then you analyze from there how the participants find, for example, here the brochure, if they obviously scaled it, let's say maybe 10 of them scaled it 4 and 5, and then when you calculate the mean score will be probably 4 point something, which will actually say that the majority of the participants actually agree or on the attractiveness of the brochure. I don't know if you getting well.
Yes, no. I'm fully following you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fully following. Yeah, I think that is helpful. That is actually a brilliant way of looking at, before when you design the questionnaire, you're already thinking how you're going to analyze it, because you have to do those processes together. Am I right?
Yes.
So you're already starting to, as you develop the questionnaire, you're already thinking the answers when they come. I mean, you've got the strongly agree, the strongly disagree, the agree, and those. So I think that's very important point that you are sharing, Prudence, because this is exactly what we are talking about when you talk about data collection and data analysis. I mean, it's one thing to have a population, to know the size and the sample, but it's another thing now to receive data and you don't know what to use, what to do with it. Yes. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to share on the analysis and the collection, or that's about what you wanted to share?
No, that would be all. Yes.
Okay. If there's anything, you're free to. This is the platform, ladies and gentlemen, because this is about literacy. Really, this is a platform we use that have already done some work, so that at least we could help each other and learn from them. Remember, we said, and again, I want you to understand the discussion in context. We're talking about the univariate analysis. It's one unit, variable that you are analyzing, and you look at the distribution of attribute that it comprises. So it can be one unit that one variable that you are analyzing. So when you do quantitative study, you may find that there's various levels. That is why we're saying in some instances you'll have a yes and a no. In some instances it could be. So as it goes from univariate into other levels, you need to know where it all started. So it's important to know the univariate analysis. It's important to know that, and even at the point when you design your tools that you are going to use for collection of data. These are quantitative tools of analysis. And remember, we said it's important for you as a student to already familiarize yourself with the program, that statistical program for social science, SPSS, because that is a tool that uses a lot of, I mean, it just does the work for you. But you need to still feed it the correct information from a planning, a research design planning phase, the method, and so on, so that when you put that information in there, it just helps you to analyze it. Bivariate, we said, in contrast, uni means one, generally. I mean, it's just a single variable. So a bivariate will be more, two variables. So in this respect, it's really the analysis of two variables that you do simultaneously. So you may have two variables that you are analyzing. It has the issue of alcohol and crime, for example, as variables. How do they relate to each other? So as a researcher, you need to look at, how many variables am I dealing with here? So that then you know what kind of an analysis are you going to put in. So most bivariate analysis in research adds another element, like, for example, determine relationship between variables. Because there are two, you can actually look at the relationship between two variables, because you're just comparing two variables at a certain time. So bivariate focuses on the variables and their empirical relationship. Is there a relationship between these two variables? And if so, what is the nature of their relationship? So that's why we say they focus on empirical relationship. On the other hand, you can have a situation where you are sitting with multi-variate analysis. Here, it means it's not just two, it's not just one, it's more. And you are examining them simultaneously. The last time when we were talking about this is that you can look at different issues, age, gender, social class, and so on and so on. So you're looking at all those at the multi-variate level and you're analyzing them. Is there a relationship between age, gender, social class, and what? So those are the analysis that you're going to be exposed to in a quantitative analysis of data. Again, we just want to put it to you that there can also be importance of numbers. I mean, I was listening to Anele earlier on, and he's saying he's going to be looking at social workers. I mean, the first question we can ask is, how many social workers? Oh, all of are maybe all together is 100. And how many of those are men and how many of those are women? Now, in a frequency distribution, is a description of the number of times the various attributes of a variable are observed. For instance, you might say there is 53% in my sample and 40% are women who are rendering services relating to GBV, for example. So that talks to the frequency of distribution. So you can bring that also in your report. I'm not going to talk about the spreadsheet because I think you all are now familiar with a spreadsheet. Again, I'm saying if you don't want to sit with reams and reams of data, you then use a statistical software package. SPSS is one, and you please find out. I'm sure you are currently working on that. Find out if they are available at your institution, at your workplace, because some places also have licenses for this. They are user-friendly, they are easy, and if you need assistance, then some of you can just do a crash course on them, because they make your quantitative data analysis much, much easy and much, much professional. For example, if you want to show graphs or tables or pie chart or bar chart, these tools make it easier for you to do that. But remember, you need to know how to populate the data that is collected as data collection from your participants. So it's important, ladies and gentlemen, to just play around with some of these tools, because when the information or the data come to you, sometimes it comes in, quite bulky, and it's a huge amount of information. And if you have not yet done the processing of how you're going to receive it and process it, it can be quite a challenge and very daunting. On the other hand, and I was also impressed by the discussion that we took, where I think it was Michael was saying, I sent the questionnaire out for people to populate, and then I'm now following up with an engagement which, in my view, is a qualitative collection of data. Now, how do you then analyze this one? I'm saying again, you need to be very careful that you use quantitative data and you apply quantitative analysis when you have collected it. When you then collect qualitative data, you need to also see that you analyze it qualitatively. So not all content analysis result in counting. So you don't necessarily have to count everything that is in the content, because there could be a thematic way of analyzing your data. There could also be a discourse analysis. There could be a number of ways that you can look at this kind of information as you go along. So qualitative analysis, remember, it's got nothing to do with being numerical. It's about your interpretation of observation. So it's your subject understanding and presentation of the data that you've collected, because you have been living and immersed yourself in the life of those people that you are interviewing. I mean, if you are going to interview people qualitatively, collecting data, you are part of the discussion. So you are observing the environment, as we said. You are looking at this environment and you are sort of absorbing it. Whilst on the quantitative side, you don't necessarily have to look at the environment because it's impersonal. You can just distribute a questionnaire. You just throw it on Google, and people think, okay, I'll participate voluntarily. You don't have to know them, and so on and so. So unlike the quantitative, in the qualitative, non-numerical, so you are discovering meaning, underlying meanings and patterns of relationship yourself as a researcher. So it's you're more involved than in the quantitative collection of data. Again, if you look at the information on, the analysis from qualitative, it is that the most important process is coding. Coding is the key process in the analysis of qualitative data, because it assists you. Again, we are saying you can be then able to classify, or you can be able to categorize individual pieces of data. So you can separate it, classify it, categorize it. And of course, this must be coupled with some kind of retrieval system. So coding is the process of transforming raw data into a standardized form, because when people talk to you, it has got no meaning, it's raw data. So you need to put coding so that at least there are codes or tags or labels that are attaching meaning to what you have done. Remember that this is based on the understanding that you have already done some kind of literature review, and you already know the themes that you want to sort of probe with people. So it's not as if you're just going to read a story and you are not seeing emerging patterns and data and labels. You yourself now start, as you do the coding, you will start identifying those tags or those labels, so that at least you are denoting concept to stand for data. So I hope this is helpful for those of you who were really attending the first time, because we needed to really go back and forward, and use practical examples, just so that you're able to assist yourself and to really check your own proposal as you go along. Let me pause here. Let me pause here and allow for an engagement with you as well, because I think it is in this engagement that I'm able to see what we can put emphasis on. But Baba, you haven't said anything, Shabangu, on since this afternoon, and I can imagine that you are at a certain stage of your proposal. Do you want to take a gamble and speak? Oh, Baba, are you able to hear us or not? Okay, I'm not sure whether Baba can hear us, and this is worrisome. Makosazana, you can take the podium now. What is your comment overall up to this far?
Thank you. So what I can say is I've gotten some clarity on some of the items that I wasn't really sure about, especially the question that put me on the spot about sampling frame. I now have a clear understanding of what that means, and it will help me, in terms of maybe future research that I would, because I've also done the research module, so I'm not working on any research at the moment. So it's just for future in case I go on, to masters. So this will really help me with my future research.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. So you are just filling up your tank in preparation for a proposal. It doesn't sound like you said you wanna, you are convinced that you're going to do it. I think you should convince yourself that this is what you think.
I've sent out applications, and so I'm still waiting. So I it can go either way, but I'm hoping obviously for the best, that I get accepted and then get to do my master's next year.
Okay. Great. Ovarsi, you haven't, I know you spoke earlier, but I want to hear where you are in terms of your own proposal now.
No, thanks, Professor. I think, like you said, it provided me with a nice conceptual understanding, and it kind of ties things up together. The concept of the golden thread, where you see things and how they need to connect and relate. So I really appreciate that. I'm like I said, I'm nearly done with my proposal, which is only the first part. But this, your workshops have certainly been very, very helpful and have been a good source of guidance. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I hope Godfrey is listening. He's my boss from UNISA. So thank you for the you and Makosazana's generosity. So let me hand over to Godfrey, and thank you again for really making time and allowing us to use your examples of your cases, because the more we use these practical cases for us, the better, rather than then have an abstract discussion just based on theories that we can all go and read for ourselves.